Morning, everyone, and we will resume back to regular session. Welcome to this evening's Board of Education meeting, Monday, December 6th. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call of trustees. All of my fellow board members are present this evening. For the good of the order, board discussion. Does anyone have anything? Archie?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Miller Young and Young's Pharmacy in April Park. Miller is the pharmacist who helped us set up the vaccine clinic. Rob and I both volunteered, and I would describe the day as a complete success. Miller and his team were organized, prompt, got all the kids through the day without, I didn't see a single tear. And it was just a really great day.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else?
I went to the middle school play, which was a couple weeks ago, and I think I went 3 times. It was awesome. So really cool to see us doing that stuff again.
I had a quick question regarding that vaccination. So they had one day, so it'll be a second day
This Saturday.
this Saturday.
Excellent. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Okay, so opportunity for the public to be heard. Jess, we had no emails, is that correct? So would anyone in the audience like to make a comment? If so, please come up to the podium and give us your name.
16 microphone. Oh, no. No, he's fixing the microphone.
Oh, I know that. Any public comments? Okay. Then we'll move on to the presentation. This is an update on the Boardsville Enrollment Project. And we'll hand it over to.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, I might have taken it off the screen.
Oh, Mark, you want to help him out? That's why your tech guy's here. So we have Regional Planning Commission. They're here tonight to be able to give over the enrollment study. This is the same group that we had last year. It was a 3-year contract with them to be able to show trends and look at it. So they've done it this year. I've asked them to do it a little bit early. This year we were scheduled for the spring, but I wanted to get a jump on where we were because we knew we had some growth from last year. And we wanted to see where we were going and have some planning for budget issues as well. So we thought now was a good time to start. And now I think you're all set.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Josh Tassi. I think last year I did the same presentation, but it was online, if I remember correctly. So some of you might remember me and some of you might not. That's okay. So I'm at a weird angle, so if you can't hear me or if I'm facing away from you or if you have any questions while I'm going, or you want me to repeat something, just let me know. And I'll be happy to do that. But yeah, so this is our updated enrollment. Could everyone hear me before I start?
Yep.
Okay. So this is our updated enrollment projection from last year. We do this for a bunch of school districts across the region. Take data. Okay. So we take data on enrollment from, back from the 80s to now. We kind of project 5 years out on what we think that enrollment might be over the next 5 years. Just a little bit of background on CDRPC. We are a regional planning commission. We help with planning projects for Albany, Rensselaer, Saratoga, and Schenectady counties, and all the municipalities within them. We do economic planning, environmental planning, all kinds of stuff like that. CDRPC has been doing school enrollment projections for at least 20 years, a long time before I was there. I've been doing them this is my 3rd year now, I think. So we have a lot of data for a lot of districts all across the region from different time periods. So a lot of information. Everyone see it? It's too small. So this is just a general outline of what I'm going to cover tonight. I'm going to start with an update of the demographic multiplier analysis that we did last year. Then I'll go into 20-year enrollment trends, so that's trends from the past 20 years. And then we'll look at housing data, trends in the birth rate, and then the actual 5-year enrollment projections. Okay, so last year we were asked to do a demographic multiplier analysis. So basically what that is taking a number that applies to different types of housing units and trying to predict how many school-age children will be produced by those housing units. So we used 2 studies from one from 2006 and one from 2017. So they were from 2006 to 2017 because we kind of wanted to get a range of data availability, and then we applied those multipliers to upcoming or planned housing units within the district boundaries. So, is this still on screen?
You're on professor view, I think. You might want to go to the slideshow part.
I mean, no. That's all right. Okay, so sorry if it's a little hard to see. But basically, the biggest project in the district boundaries is in Guilderland at the Albany County Golf Club or Country Club. There's a big housing project that's been proposed for there. Last year, it's still not finalized. And they keep updating it. Last year, it was, I believe, supposed to be like 120 multifamily units and like 70 single-family units, I believe. But this year, it's been updated. So as you can see over here, it's been updated to now 196 single-family units and 49 multifamily units. So that kind of changes our demographic multiplier analysis a little bit. It kind of gives us a range of what we think, of students that we think could be added to the district over the next 10 years. So last year, I believe it was a range of 258 to 305 students. And now we've upgraded that to around 290 to 317 new students. So, this project still hasn't been approved. It keeps changing, and it could change next year, or it could be approved next week. I really don't know yet. But so that's just over the next 10 years. If that project is approved in the way it is now, that could contribute to adding somewhere in that range of students. Does that make sense to everybody? I know it's a little confusing, and there's a lot of numbers I'm throwing at you. But that's the basics of the demographic. So now, before I get into the 20-year enrollment, I'm going to be talking about what we call survival ratios a lot. So I just kind of wanted to explain them a little bit before we begin or go further. So a survival multiplier or ratio is basically the number of students that continued on from last year to this year. So if there is 100 students in 2nd grade last year and 120 students in 3rd grade this year, that would generate a ratio of 1.2. So that means that more students were enrolled in the next year in that same class. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. And then we have what we call a birth to kindergarten survival ratio, which is the same concept, but we take the number of children that were born in a certain year, and then 5 years later, how many of those children were enrolled in kindergarten. So that does that make sense, everybody? So I'll probably be referencing those as we go on. So this is a look at the last 20 years of enrollment data in the district. It's hard to see, but over here, In 2002, 2003, the district started with 1,292 students enrolled. And then now, in the most recent year, 2021-22, there was 1,213 students enrolled. So it was a little bit of a dip over the past 10 years, but now it's kind of back on the rebound. Their enrollment overall is starting to head back up. This is just a look at kindergarten enrollment. Kindergarten enrollment is a little bit more volatile. You can see, kind of throughout the 2010s, it kind of bounced around a lot. There were spike downs and there were spikes up.
Can I ask you a question on the 20-year enrollment?
Sure.
Was the dip, to what do you attribute the dip? Was it like just general declining population?
Yeah, I think it's just an overall kind of smaller generations of students coming in as the generation shifted from millennials to Gen Z. I think it's just like a smaller generation. So that's, it's not just here, it's like across the country.
Yeah.
At least for all the enrollment projections that we do, that general trend of kind of decline just because of the smaller generations. So yeah, this is a look at the kindergarten enrollment. This year there was 84 kindergarten students enrolled, which is a little bit, it's been stable in the past few years after kind of a lot of volatility. This is a look at the K through 5. So we kind of break down the grades into cohorts. We do by 3 cohorts. We do kindergarten to 5th grade, 6th to 8th grade, and then 9th through 12th grade, just to kind of break up the different sections of where students are enrolled. K through 5 enrollment is pretty important because it kind of fuels enrollment for the rest of the district. If there's a really big kindergarten class, then those students will move through and kind of gain momentum as they go and add more students. So that can result in a spike or more students being added. So K through 5 is pretty important, and it usually is foretells where district enrollment will go. So in the last few years here, you can kind of see it starting to spike up after a little bit of a decline, but mostly stability over the past decade. So that is a good sign for growth. This is just a look at 6 to 8. Pretty stable. Not too many spikes up and down, which is good. A little bit of fluctuation in the most recent few years over here, but pretty stable over the past year. And this is a look through 9 through 12. It takes a lot longer for trends to reach this cohort just because students have to go through all the other grades before they get to 9th through 12th grade. This cohort is usually a little bit behind. If you see K through 5 and 6 to 8 starting to trend up, it might take a couple of years for that to reach 9 through 12. So this is a look at the number of housing units in the district. I know it's hard to see, but these 3 purple columns are decennial census data. So these are exact counts. So they give us an exact number of how many housing units are in the district every 10 years. We recently got some of the 2020 census data. It's not all out yet, but housing unit data was released. So there was 3,321 total units in the district as of 2020. And it's been steadily growing, which is a good sign of units being added. And then this bar over here is from the American Community Survey, which is estimates, but it kind of gives a breakdown of the types of housing units in the district. So this really big blue bar here is single-family detached homes. So that's kind of like your standalone, home that you find in like a neighborhood. Has a bunch of rooms. Is usually for families, with children, or for maybe to have children. So that kind of housing unit dominates the district. So this is a chart of existing home sales in the district. So, in the past, since 2014, it was pretty stable. This line up here, this yellow line, is the number of units sold. So, there was a bit of a jump in 2015, 2016, and then a little bit of a decline. And now it's starting to trend back up. Our data is only through November 1st. So that's why the line kind of jumps down a little bit. But it was on pace to be the highest year for existing home unit sales. I believe it was on pace to be 124, which would be the most since 2014. The housing market throughout the region was really hot this entire year. The housing stocks are really low, median sales prices jumped all over. A lot of people were trying to buy houses all throughout the region. And with such a high percentage of housing units being those single-family detached units, we don't know who's moving into these houses or who's buying homes, but if that's kind of how the units are dominated, we can assume that people with kids or families are looking to start families, are looking at these single-family detached homes and are starting to buy them up. So that could add an extra bump into enrollment over the next 10 years.
Gosh, going to the building permits that are issued, when 6 2-unit building permits are issued, does that mean there are 12 units put in or 6 units put in?
So that would be 6 2 units would be like 12 units. So like the way it's a little confusing how to break it down, but yeah.
Do you know if there is any survey data that asks home buyers what were their considerations? For example, the school district,
Yeah. So
quality of the schools.
yeah. So we don't have that data. We have to buy this data, but I don't think they ask anything like that. So we kind of have to assume that the school district is part of it. And going back to those single-family detached units being such a high percentage of the units in the district, if we can kind of assume, we can't say for sure either way, but we can kind of assume that the school district will play a part in it. Because if you're buying, a home with multiple rooms, you either have children or plan to have children, you'd assume. So we don't know for sure, and there's no survey data for that, but that's kind of the conclusion we look towards. Any other questions about the system? So this is birth data since 2002. So this is births in the district. You can see overall it's been declining. This is what we were talking about before with the smaller generation. Less people are having children. This is very common across districts all over the region. It's just a much smaller generation. These 2 gold bars down here, these have to be estimated because the data lags behind by 2 years, so we don't have data for 2020 or 2021. I made them a little bit lower than average because we're not really sure how COVID is going to affect birth rates. A lot of experts are predicting a maybe bust. They think that fewer people than normal were having kids during the pandemic due to just general health concerns and economic factors. I've heard some people say that they think there'll be a baby boom and the more people have kids. So it's a little hard to tell, but we went kind of on the conservative side and made it a little bit lower just in case these birth rates drop a little bit. So this is a look at the survival ratios that I was talking about before. Voorheesville has actually really strong birth to kindergarten survival ratios. They have been above 1 every year since 2002. This year's was 1.8, which is for every child that was born in 2016, almost 2 children were enrolled in the district this year. So that's a really good sign of growth. If there was a spike or a jump in birth rate, that would also, hopefully cause a jump in kindergarten enrollment as well. So these high survival ratios are a really good sign of growth. So this is the 5-year projection. This is kind of looking at every grade for the next 5 years. We are projecting that by 2026-27, there will be 1,296 students enrolled in the district. There's charts, so we don't have to table. So this is a look at total enrollment over the next 5 years. You can see this gold line is what we're projecting, and the purple line is the historic enrollment. So this is where we are now. This year there was 1,213 students enrolled. So we're projecting that over the next 5 years, there will be around 83 students, more students enrolled in the district than there are now.
Josh, just real quick, in comparison to last year's, I know that we had, there was a slight difference. We actually had more growth than we thought, correct?
Yes.
So with our kindergarten, I believe it was, in the executive summary, it was 13 more students than projected. What did that look like overall for the district? Did we see more growth overall for the district and then what we saw from what we anticipated from last year?
Yeah, I think it was pretty close, like the total numbers. It's in there.
It was an increase of 83 students, 6.84%, right?
Yeah.
From the bottom.
And there should be, like towards the end of the report, there should be like a chart that compares, like what you're asking, like compare like what we projected versus what actual enrollment was.
So these are conservative, right?
Yeah.
If we're looking at this rate, if you're saying, because last year we're looking at 300,
Yeah.
a conservative value could even be 400 or 500.
Yes.
We're just looking at a lower end.
Yeah.
Just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, so these projections do not include the demographic multiplier analysis yet, like those students that, that range from around 300. That's not included in here yet, just because the project hasn't been finalized or approved. And that could, like, not necessarily those students that we added in 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be over 12 years. So we keep them out, but this is a more conservative projection, just because there is that the possibility of more students being added by people moving into the district and the existing home sales, and then that big Gilderland project that would bring in funds.
So these numbers that you're seeing are conservative and could be increased by anywhere between 50 and 100.
Yep.
And on top of that, we could add another 300 to 500 on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I just want to be clear is we could have an exponential growth in comparison to what we're seeing conservative aspect of this.
So we could have 1,400 to 1,500 kids in this district in 5 years,
Yeah, it's in 5 years,
In
Or
10
10
years.
years,
yeah, maybe 10 years.
depending on what Gilderland.
Yeah, because even if that project gets approved,
Yeah.
before the next school year, it might not be constructed before that school year starts. That would push it back, and then people move in. Maybe they have to wait to have kids, or maybe
Right.
they get kids. But so this projection is based solely on current conditions. If that makes sense, like current housing units, current birth rates, current ratios and surrounding multipliers. So it's definitely more conservative with that big Gilderland project kind of looming. That could definitely be a big bump over the next 10 years. Or no kids can come. You never know, but that's unlikely that no kids can come from that. But God forbid that there is no kids. So this is just a look by grade cohort. As you can see, K through 5, a gradual increase, but this has helped fueling that projection of growth down the line. This is a look at 6 through 8. Still more growth here. Dips down a little bit at the end, but after these 5 years, then that growth that we saw in K through 5 would move into this cohort. So then this would start to go up, and then in 9 through 12, in this 5 years, it's projected to dip a little bit. But as I said before, trends take a long time to reach this cohort. So growth in here would take a little bit, so it might go down, over 5, 6, 7 years. But as those larger kindergarten, K through 5 classes come through, 6 through 8, it'll bump these up. So does anyone have any questions about anything I talked about, or want me to go back, or I know it's a little hard to see the charts, but I could.
This will be posted on the website afterwards, so people will be able to view.
The whole thing will be posted too?
Yep, everything.
I have a quick question. So the 83 increase would mainly be K-5 at first and then bubble up?
Yeah, I mean, so like kids could be added, people could move here, but
Right.
those existing home sales, like someone with a kid in, 8th grade or 7th grade could move in, but the majority of that growth would come through the birth rate.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so move on to Let's see.
My turn.
Keep the clicker. Okay,
All right. Superintendent's report.
superintendent's report, take it over.
All right, just had a change in that, right? So, really, I just wanted to address the COVID pandemic and the vaccination clinic and talk about those things. And, you know, as you might have seen recently, we've had a larger increase of, you know, notifications of COVID as we've seen across the county. Every school district in the area after break has seen an increase in notifications, especially, and it started from Monday down. And then, you know, it's basically what I would call a wave. You'll see your first wave after the break, and then you will know of students or individuals who were positive or in quarantine. That will slow down. So like as you saw on Friday, we had very limited announcements, and then you might see another bubble from that individual group. So something that's important to understand is we're not seeing the spread in school, and it's hard to trace it back into school. But what's happening is it's within our school community. So if people are at their house, they go to work, and they bring it home, and I'm going to use myself as an example. Say my spouse comes and she has COVID, brings it into the house. I then test positive. 2 days later, 2 of my children test positive. 2 days later after that, 3 more of my children, 2 more of my children test positive. I could have 5 positive notifications for one household. And sometimes that's what you're starting to see. You're seeing these large numbers coming out, but you're not seeing that, because I can't give you the specifics of why, because then it would narrow it down to, possibilities. But, it's really broken down to household individuals or, groupings, or, we can track it to if somebody went to X and 3 other kids were there and then 2 other kids were there and they were with so-and-so on a weekend, you're starting to see that. And what ends up happening is they quarantine those individuals. So they're quarantined, and then one of them gets positive and they're quarantined again for 5 days. So that's why you're sometimes seeing no contacts. And another thing you're seeing with no contacts is we've done a really good job, especially in our elementary school, of the 6 foot in lunches, right? A lot of school districts don't have that 6 foot in lunches. So that's why you're seeing these school districts that are 3 feet. If you're under 6 feet with no mask on, you have to quarantine. But if you go to our elementary school, they're 6 feet apart. That was done on purpose to make sure that we could maximize our students. So that's why you're seeing less quarantines coming out of school. We, last week, we did rough anywhere between 14 to 19 students on quarantine. That's not from us. Some of it was, let's say like 9 of that was, and then some of it was from outside. But we're still servicing those students. But we did see a large spike in that. I wanted to just talk about it a little bit so you had an understanding of, you're seeing these numbers, but you don't have context. Any question on that I can answer? I hope it helps.
But we're still keeping an eye on whether there's in-school spread
Yeah, all the
with
time.
county DOH and verifying that stuff.
We mostly do all the work, but yeah,
Uh-huh.
we're watching to see if there's spread, seeing what the numbers are, where they're coming from, what classrooms are coming from, if there's connections to outside events.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of that work to, and again, there's anomalies that we're looking at saying, we're not sure, this could be this, but we're keeping track. And the more numbers we have, the more similarities that could say, okay, this is pinpointing back to this, then we'll be able to address our situations and look at our mitigation program. Go ahead.
I was just trying to understand, some of it is family-based and things that are going on. Do we have any ideas of, is it Thanksgiving feasts or is it?
It's all over.
Is it sports?
It runs the gambit. A lot of it was get-togethers. It can be,
Yeah.
I haven't heard it's going to grocery stores, right? I haven't heard that.
But you don't know.
But we don't
You don't
know.
know.
It's not
You
specific.
don't
So
know.
that's why it's
Yeah.
hard to say.
Yeah.
What we do know is
You're not
there's high
actually
rates in the
knowing.
county. Those rates are coming into to our community. And within those households, you're seeing spread. And that's, I think, the most important aspect.
It's here.
Right, but we're still in session. We're doing everything we can do to stay in session. Our staff are doing a phenomenal job being able to handle those pressures. It really is a district initiative to do it, but we're working through those things. And I'm hoping what's going to happen is you're going to see a little bit more bump, and then it'll go down. And we're really starting now to plan for next year, for 2022, because unfortunately, I think we're going to have a huge spike when we get back. And that's going to be something that we're really going to have to watch carefully and plan for accordingly, because I'm a little concerned
When
with
we
it
get back
from a break.
Winter break.
I mean,
winter break.
Coming break.
Yeah.
Almost all our cases, though, until very recently, have been elementary, right?
Correct.
Where there have been no vaccinations.
Vaccination.
So you would think that means more high school and
That's correct.
It works,
Yeah,
right?
it does work, and that's
So-
why you're seeing more in elementary,
Yep.
middle school and high school, you're seeing very limited. But, you know, the more kids that we have vaccinated, the less likely, most likely we are.
So maybe you'll be wrong about January.
Well, let's talk about that. So perfect segue into the clinic. So we had our first clinic on December 11th. As RG already said, we had a great number of staff. There's some staff members that are here tonight that volunteered. We had students. We had board members that came. We had roughly 140 students that were vaccinated at that event. They're coming back on December 11th, so that's a Saturday. Again, another 100, those same 140 roughly will come back. Some may or may not be able to make it due to sicknesses or other issues. It happens. It is every other season as well, of cold, RSV, flu. We're going to have 140. We do know that we have other students that are not mandatory obligated to tell us, nor are we collecting that information at this time, but we do have families that tell us that they have been vaccinated. And based off of the survey that we sent in the beginning of the year and where we are, I'm estimating roughly half of our student population will be vaccinated in our elementary school by January. Information, I don't have the full data. That would take our nurses going through the system after it's updated, which it takes roughly a month or 2 months to get that fully updated. So it's going to take some time, but roughly half is a conservative estimate that our elementary school vaccination rates. So that should increase our quarantine, decrease our quarantine.
Mhm. Will decrease our positives.
Yes, because again, I'm going to say it. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine. And symptom-free, but that's normal.
Frank, that leads me to the question about the duration of the quarantine.
That's my, let me get there, Tim. That was
Okay, good.
You guys are leading me tonight. This is fantastic.
Thank
So
you.
let's talk about duration of quarantines, because Albany County Department of Health is now piloting a new program that it's 10 days is typical for duration of quarantine. They're saying that you can test out as of official day 8. So you can test out of the quarantine if you have a negative result. It can be a rapid as long as you're asymptomatic, but it cannot be a home test. You can test out, I believe you can get the test on day 5. Right? Yep, thank you. Get the test on day 5, and then by day 8, you're able to come back as long as you're still negative and symptomatic. That has been very helpful because when we came back from break, we had a group of students that we found out were exposed on Tuesday before break. We came back, we notified them on Monday after break that they were exposed. On Wednesday, if they came back, not positive, they were back. So we stopped a 5-day quarantine to a 2-day quarantine. And we're in the business of teaching kids, that's great. Saratoga, there's a county. There's piloting programs. I think you're going to see in the upcoming future, you're going to see that county go to a test to stay protocol, where they're testing students who are in quarantine every single day with a Binax or a rapid kit. There's issues with that come up with staffing and actually Binax, the availability of Binax kits. But we're going to see how that goes, and we'll see if Albany County Department of Health then does adopt that later on, a test to stay program.
Say that again, who gets tested?
The student who is on quarantine or staff member. So let's say if I wasn't vaccinated and I was in quarantine, I could come to work and be tested every day.
Yeah.
I could stay as long as I'm asymptomatic and good to go. So test to stay during quarantine. So that would eliminate basically a large amount of our students, staff that weren't able to be in school. That is the next step that you're seeing. But right now it's the test out pilot. Albany County Department of Health and New York State Department of Health has to work out some bugs. This is a very brand new program. So the communications between the two, and each county across the state is doing different things. So there was a couple mix-ups, but we're all working together now to make sure that everybody has very clear and clean communication.
What's the impact on the staff on this particular situation that we find ourselves in?
Stressful. But all joking aside, this is a better, anything that lessens quarantines and gets students in time and allows staff and students to get back to normal is better. So this allowing us to have less students on quarantine, better. If we get back to, test to stay, that's even better, because then we have a lot. That would have staffing concerns for us to make sure that we have a nurse available to be able to do it and all the other issues. So, not everything's easy. There's always a balancing act. But this will definitely help our instructional program.
This has got to be a difficult situation.
I will say that I believe this district is doing well, but this is not easy. Every school district's struggling. I mean, we struggle each day. It's a lot harder for everybody. But, again, I think this district has come along. Everybody's working together. They get that we're here for our students. And, it's difficult, but, I think there is a light at the end, hopefully. And, we'll get there as we go forward. Any other-
With the rapid tests, not for little kids, but for staff, I mean, they can be self-administered.
Self-administered, yep.
So it doesn't have to be a nurse with them.
Yep.
They can be trained personnel. That's what we do. And we do the exact same thing at work. I think a lot of colleges and workplaces do is we have the rapid test. But you got one thing right there is with the availability of them after December is very questionable. So we have, people who are vaccinated come in and after day 5, as long as they're asymptomatic, they get tested twice a week and they stay either working or they stay in school. And it's very effective
So you saying the availability of the rapid test is going to be?
by an it's
They sell out.
They sell, at the end of December, like during January, if you try to put an order in now, forget it. I mean, we have like a couple of cases left that unfortunately expire in
About the school
December.
district, yeah.
So we're not using Bionex kits right now because we're using Quadrant and we don't have a program to utilize rapid testing. I know school districts that are using them are borrowing from other school districts because they can't have enough to be able to supply. So it's very
They're just,
limited.
they're
It's
running
just,
totally out.
it's across the state.
Wow.
In Maryland, they were giving them away.
Yeah. But the point is that the rapid tests are very effective on asymptomatic people. That's why they're running out of them. It's that they're very, as long as you don't have symptoms, they have a very high sensitivity to say positive or negative, and they're so easy to do.
Last weekend, I was down in New York City, and on multiple street corners, there were little desks like this set up under a little tent, and you could walk right up and have either a PCR or an antigen test. Free.
Yeah.
All over the place. It was weird.
Sorry, Robbie.
Now, I have a question. Do you know, Frank, in Albany County, the test to return is the test to return, does it eliminate the quarantine order itself, or is it only to return to school? I know
It
some
eliminates the
counties.
quarantine order itself.
Okay, it does. So you can go to Hannaford and whatever.
Yes,
I know
but
some counties were only allowing you to return to school with that
No.
and not.
If on our website, Albany County Department of Health, we actually post exactly what they sent us. And eliminates it, but it doesn't change the quarantine order that you'll see on the New York State Department of Health. So they're not gonna issue a new one. It's a school basically issuing and saying your quarantine is gone. So that's why there is a little discrepancy between New York State Department of Health and Albany County with some contact tracing. Because if the school's saying you're good and we have documentation showing you're good, but it's not being communicated, that's where an issue is.
So you can return to sports?
As long as it's test out of quarantine, not test to stay, that's completely
Okay,
different.
okay.
Test to stay, which we don't do, I want to be clear, Albany County does not allow it. If you do test to stay, it's only for school. After you come in,
Okay.
you leave, and then no extracurricular activities. It's just, you come in at the beginning of the day, you end, and that's it. It's just test to stay in school for direct instruction. None of the other stuff. But that's what test to stay is. We're not doing it. Albany County's not there. We just piloted the 7 neighborhoods.
Cindy, what were you saying about the nurses versus trained personnel who can administer the test?
The rapid COVID tests for asymptomatic people is you got to be
adults.
sensible here, children, but
Right.
for, someone who can self-administer, there's 17-year-old kids in college that do it. They
Right.
just twirl in front and hand it over, but if trained personnel can be in charge of doing that.
What do we require here?
We don't do rapid tests yet.
We only do Quadrant.
Right.
And that requires a nurse.
We're all set up. We have a nurse that does it. We utilize it. We have that all set up. Yep, we're all set. We have that all worked out so far. If the Bionex thing comes in, then it's a whole different story.
Got it.
I have one more thing. Actually, it's 2 more things. I just want to state that I don't get to see everybody because it's my one chance to talk. I wish you all a happy holidays, because this is maybe our last board meeting prior to the Christmas year, so I just want to thank you for that. And I'm also coming up on my 2-year anniversary here, it's in December, and I just want to say it's been a great 2 years, a lot of fun. Seriously, but I just want to say that, so I just want to say happy holidays. That's
Thank
it.
you. Excellent. Okay, thank you for that update. Okay. Approval of minutes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last board meeting, please?
Move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so let's group 5.1 through 5.8, that's treasurer's report. We have personnel items. Notes, we have CSC recommendations, BOCES, sublist, NISBA membership, approved budget calendar, approved contract with CYO, and declaration of surplus. Any questions from any board members?
Can we discuss the CYO contract? Is that, when I was reading through it, it didn't refer to the age group that was involved?
That's a K,
It's a K2.
K2.
Okay,
That's allowed.
I didn't notice that.
No,
It's
And then
that's it, right?
I had a couple questions, I didn't see that one. And then it said to avoid physical contact. Can it say like 3 to 6 foot? Was it going to be, it said avoiding physical contact, but it didn't say that there was going to be distancing?
That has to be approved by the athletic director, so you saw that the plans.
Yeah,
stated
the
that
plans
all
would
those-
be-
So those
right.
specific plans and criteria will be sent over.
Okay. And that they would do the contact tracing and the timing and, okay. And if do we still do like a major cleaning and disinfecting if there's a case of COVID? What
We have our staff unit, they go through, disinfect, use our spray gun.
Even though
Yes.
it's-
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? I have a motion,
I'll move it.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we'll move on to old business, and we had audit committee tonight, and if Archie, if you would kindly give us an update?
Sure, thanks, Cindy. We met earlier this evening, we had a very quick meeting. We reviewed the school lunch profit and loss statements through October. Good news is we're doing great there. Bringing all the students back, as well as the reimbursements for breakfast and lunch are working. So we're just a little bit in the red. We may make that up by the end of the year, one would hope. We also reviewed the claims auditor reports. And we reviewed a report that goes over our budgeted and encumbered expenses relative to what we spent so far. And we're in good shape there. Thanks.
Okay, and thank you, Archie, and all of the business office for all your work, because even though it's a short meeting, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and we appreciate the accurate update. Thank you. Okay, let's see, curriculum, Tim?
Yes, the curriculum committee met last month. We had 3 items on the agenda. Everyone was present who was on the committee. We had 3 items. The first was just a reminder that the Board of Regents, New York State Board of Regents, is holding a series of virtual meetings throughout various regions of the state. The one set for this region is tomorrow from 2 to 4:30, and it's a WebEx sort of virtual meeting. And they're asking parents and educators and administrators, support staff, any members of the community to come forward and discuss with them what they believe might be some changes to any graduation requirements. The region started this process a long time ago. COVID hit, everything kind of went on hiatus. Now they're kind of getting back at it. They're going to take their time before any decisions are made. There's no emergency here or anything of that nature, but there's an acknowledgement that the world is changing and the requirements of people leaving high school may be different than they were in the past. So during this meeting tomorrow, they're going to review some of the current graduation measures, bring us all up to speed on that. And then they have a series of 5 guiding questions that they're going to be asking to inform their thinking about what might be diploma requirements in the future. They expect their final report will not be completed until the spring or summer of 2024. So I plan to be a part of that, just listen in, and I don't have anything to contribute, just want to hear what they're talking about. The second thing that we talked about was the 2021 New York State testing program results that had been embargoed. And they were embargoed because of COVID, of course. And it made the testing process very different and very altered from what it had been in the years past. So it's very difficult to make any real comparisons between prior year and what we had in 2021. The test had been altered from previous years by only being 1 day, 1 session, only multiple choice questions. Only about 40% of the statewide student population that was eligible for these free-grade tests participated. The state was not using the results to compare districts or for any accountability purposes. The question then begs, what are you using this data for? And in talking with Karen Conroy and with Frank, we learned that they're using this to see to what extent Voorheesville students are performing against state standards. It helps inform what students are doing well, on what standards, which standards are we perhaps falling a little short on, how can we adjust the curriculum and some of our instructional methodologies to improve outcomes going forward. But the traditional use of that kind of data was just not available this year. Might be better next year, but we really don't know. It's hard to say. The third thing we talked about was a course proposal that has come forward that would propose offering AP Spanish in high school. There are 10 out of 14 students who are currently in the Spanish sequence who would be interested in taking the course. 2 others have said maybe. We talked a little bit about it. There wasn't an approval process or a vote or anything like that. This is just kind of offering some general feedback. And I think the general feedback was very supportive. There were some questions, and I think we helped inform the discussion a little bit. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is make sure that there are options available for students who want them, who would benefit from these sorts of things. And this was one where we have people on staff now who could be utilized to provide this sort of course. So we thought it was a good idea, and to be determined if it's going to happen.
I just want to add one thing. That is because we don't currently have for our seniors, there is not a foreign language course. So they finish it, so these students finish Spanish for their junior year. So their senior year, if they are going to go on, they actually lose a gap aspect of it. So having that AP at a new level for those students is able to have continuous role for our kids. Also gives our seniors another thing to do instead of having, study halls. So, it's another opportunity for our kids, and it actually addresses a situation where there would be a gap for those kids.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks for sitting in on that meeting tomorrow.
Give you a full report.
I'll be there too.
Okay, good. That's very much appreciated. Okay, facilities, Rob, Tim?
Yeah, we talked about facility use stuff with CYO, the end results of which we just approved. So there was that. We spent a long time talking about that. I guess I don't need to go into all the details because they ended up in the document, right? We also, more broadly and I suppose generically, expressed our interest in starting continuing ed at some point, which would be awesome, but who knows what will happen in the future. We got some updates on outstanding items. Bill's working on satellite fields, he's filling the holes, and we're waiting on soil sample stuff to come back. I'm not sure if that did. We also, as always, talked about the potential elementary school transportation project that has been shifting in different directions lately. And we're waiting on some more data to come back, and I think some more conversations to happen. We have some further updates on some shared services. And then we started going over the building condition survey items, and that'll be an ongoing, next 1 to 2 meetings, I guess, kind of revisiting that stuff and going over it and seeing what we want to take a harder look at. That was it. Quick one this time.
Thanks for all the work, though, man. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So, going to the CYO conversation, as we talked about K2, we went to CYO and talked about how 3-4 can actually happen as well. They came back with a recommendation that I wanted to bring to the board that we talked about, and that was they could do the 3-4 program similar to the K2, so they would use our facilities only for practice with the 3-4 program, but they would do their games and everything else off-site. The 3-4 program would follow any protocols and agreements similar to the K2. The only difference was that we wouldn't have any games or any events or any groupings. It would only be the students who are already a part of that program as a part of it. And, I wanted to bring it to the board to see if that's something that you want me to pursue, or if it's something that you just say, no, we have the K2 program right now, we're just going to keep it at K2 and not open up.
I personally have no problem doing that. Do we have gym space? It's always my
So,
question.
Joe Sapienza said that they can squiggle them in, during like the other nights or during the high school, so it can work. And we do have the gym space. Again, this is Joe's world. He understands that much better than I do. But he did say there is space available.
Yeah, I mean, so they're not going to be doing anything different than K through 2. So, I don't see why we would say no.
Yeah. And they
So it's
have,
the same protocols.
and it's the same
everything else.
protocols.
Yep.
That, we're initiating for the K2 program.
Where is the K2?
That's going to be at our elementary school.
And facilities was fine with it.
Well, they weren't, because we didn't talk.
We didn't talk about it yet.
Oh.
So we talked about other things. They came back with that. So that wasn't one that we had for facilities.
The only other thing that we did say, I guess, that I left off here that wouldn't be in the contract is we talked about how, once we're out of high transmission, a lot of the stuff goes away, and then 3-4, K2, they can play games like normal again, because that's not part of the, right? So that's the part of the procedures,
So this evening, you're recommending that 3-4 be brought back for practice?
I'll recommend that we're,
Not for contact.
Yep, so that was what CYO stated that they offered to us. I don't see any really difference between the K2. They're going to be meeting somewhere anyways, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but-
And if we can get it here and get it underneath protocols, I think that's not a bad thing. So I do recommend that. I can finalize the agreement if board wishes with the facilities and then bring that back for a vote.
Or are people okay with that? I mean, do you want to vote on that, or do you want?
Where would the 3-4 be?
It'd be at the high school.
At the, there are 2 different places.
But following the same way?
I think it was high school as a judge over there.
3-4, like for their house league, they used to use the elementary.
Elementary, yeah.
I honestly,
Yeah.
Joe told me high school.
I don't think it matters as long as we.
Where Joe has room for them, right?
Yeah, basically Joe said wherever.
Yeah, if Joe says he can do it, then we say.
The
we
problem
follow
is at
same
the
rules.
elementary school, our small gym right now is our cafeteria.
Right.
So that every night,
Yeah,
CYO can break it down and put it back up on a weekend. It's a lot harder to do on a weekday.
Well, the thing is, the middle school and the high school aren't practicing
Right.
down there, and I'm sure K2 don't practice every single day, so why, I would think they could accommodate
Yeah.
all of them down in the large gym.
And Joe can find the spaces.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I don't think it matters where they are, just that they get the opportunity to do that. I
Yep.
mean, does anybody, people ready to vote on that?
And they're already operating out of PYC 3-4?
I believe so.
I don't know.
No, I don't think they even have.
I don't
So they're
think
not
they
operating?
started
I thought they were.
For the, I don't know, I haven't attended a CYO meeting recently. K through 2, they haven't done anything. 3-4, I'm not sure.
Well, then they could just do it if they haven't started the K2, that we'd think it'd be easier for them to just put it all together at once, like big 4, right, with the same load class.
The contract is for Saturdays.
That's for the K2.
This is, this is not
But
a
it doesn't
3-4.
say K2 anymore.
Oh,
It doesn't say K.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was gonna say.
No,
No, what?
right.
Yeah, I didn't see it. In this version, I don't see K2. So,
Yeah.
in some ways, like, while we all understand that the CDC's recommendation is that basketball is a high-risk sport, high-risk sport players should be vaccinated, and there's some sort of tacit approval of the fact that you're not doing it in school grounds, and we're just gonna turn blind eye to whatever you're doing somewhere else, which we don't see, but it does also put the CYO under the obligation to include, and I'm like looking at you, Archie, and to include the onus of following the COVID protocols to the letter that the school would require. So in that regard, it brings the CYO K through 4 under the auspices of the COVID protocols. But it does make sense in that regard, even though CDC guidelines say, be vaccinated or don't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
But, yeah, they're not playing.
Yeah, they're not playing basketball.
They're not playing here,
Yep.
but they're playing elsewhere, and we know it.
Yeah, but that's,
So there is a level of tacit approval of saying like, you know what, you can use this space. Even though you're gonna go out and do, it's a little bit like letting kids drink in your own basement, because then they're not gonna drink.
like, I'll say, I think CYO is happy to follow the protocols, and they will be enforced stringently because they want to protect the program.
right.
Yeah.
And they
And the
want kids to play in the community. And I think Frank and Jim, I think, have met with members of the CYO board and repeatedly and stressed the need to follow the protocols.
So it would be like the same exact wording contract, except for the Saturday, that's the K2 pretty much.
Correct. Yeah. And this will be amended to say K2,
So
right?
that will be amended, but it would be the same exact thing.
Isn't 432 New Salem Road, that's not the elementary school, that's the high school, that's where we are right now, but it says the elementary school. So it owns facilities at 432 New Salem Road, and then at the bottom it says it's gonna let the use in elementary school. Sure that the lawyers will figure it out.
Lawyer from that.
Maybe the
That's our
lawyers.
problem, that's the problem.
Have the lawyers do a little
So-
Google map. And on number 11, it says partiers instead of.
Like the basement.
Yes.
Yeah.
That might have been what prompted that thought process.
Okay, so are people ready to vote and do that report, include the report?
Well, if technically the contract didn't say K2, do we even?
No, we do.
Say-
So this is gonna make it amended. I'll do a new contract and I'll have it across the.
Yeah, and plus, I think, Rob, the difference is, they say only Saturday, we don't want to close that on report.
And we didn't bill them for anything else, by the way. We
Yeah,
only billed them for the Saturday use, so.
yeah, so let's do, and I think the older kids practice during the evening on other days, so we don't want to make them just say Saturday. And,
And Frank, you're okay with janitorial staff? I know we have a shortage,
So the Saturday is the issue, right? So we've worked that out.
so the evening's fine.
Yeah, the evenings are fine, we have staff.
and plus, I think K2 would always be down there, but 3, 4, that, maybe Joe wants to put them up at the middle school.
It's up to Joe.
So that's what,
Yeah,
that's
we're
why
gonna
I
Joe work
wouldn't
through it.
just put an address
Yep.
like that on the
Jess is
report.
writing all that stuff down.
So let's have a motion to move allowing to redo do you want to just do the contract and then we'll review it and then we'll,
Why don't we just do that?
if we have to have a quorum, we may have to have a quorum meeting, special
probably
meeting
will.
anyway, then we'll vote on it then, but we won't make it late. till
Yep,
January.
no, that should be in the next week or two.
Okay, so we'll do that, okay, and then we'll have a quorum after we get it drafted again.
Special meeting.
Special meeting with the quorum, so.
We'll get to
once we
see you
can
guys
get 4
before.
people.
Perfect.
Just not on the 7th.
Take that happy holiday.
Well, we only need 4
I know,
people.
take it back.
Yeah, we only need 4 people.
Yeah, but we should meet on the 7th.
On what?
The 17th. There.
Oh, yeah, well. Okay, so, all right, thank you, Rob, thank you, Frank, for that. And so policy, Rachel's here.
Oh, policy, we were all there. Rob was under the weather, but still there, and thank you for being there. We covered quite a slate, and a lot of the things we covered are gonna be discussed today and reviewed, and I just wanna call attention to some of them, special attention. We covered the retiree health insurance policy because someone in the business office noticed that, retired employees did not have the ability to have domestic partners be insured, covered by insurance, and that doesn't align with what we do. So this would change that. This is a revision that is going to the board for a vote. We've been working on our technology policy, and Frank's been working with a whole slew of different things there. And this is computer use in instruction. And this is also a revision, and we worked on some other policies that are going to be revised as well and come forward in the future. But 4526 brings it up to date in terms of the language being used. 4532 is school volunteers. It's a policy regarding school volunteers. We have different activities and programs that are part of the school district, like Odyssey of the Mind, and we have volunteers that are part of that are supervising children on their own. And we want to make sure that everyone is safe, and so this policy covers that. It gives us a way of saying, these are volunteers, we are so happy to have them. We want to make sure everyone's safe. This is the level of review and participation that is necessary to have. So we bring forward policy 4523, and that is a first read policy. Policy 6831 is also a first read policy because we have employees that may start their workday here and then may drive down to the elementary school and may drive back. And all of this, they're doing it in their own personal vehicles, and it just adds up. You can say it's a penny here and a penny there, but it's not. At about 50-something cents a mile, it's basically we're asking employees to give donations, and that's not right. So this allows the district to reimburse people at the tax rate for work, and it'll align, where do you start your workday, so it covers all of that, and this is a first read policy.
Rachel, that's a revision.
That's a revision?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a revision.
Sorry.
We only have the one first.
My notes are wrong, thank you. Yes, we're gonna just cover that. And then the last one that we have to bring forward is the ex officios policy. That is the idea of bringing a student, a non-voting member of the school board. This is the second read, we'd be voting on this tonight. If we move this forward, we should all be aware that this is something we would put on the ballot potentially in May for voters to decide whether or not they want to have a student sitting on the board, not voting, not participating in executive session, but this would be an opportunity for a student to be involved in civil service, or their civic duty, and to have another ear to the students a little bit as well. So I just want to call attention to these policies as we either vote on them or read them through the first time, or we want to as a policy committee. So that's what we did on December 1st. And we were shocked that it was December, but that was policy committee.
A lot of work. Thank you, Rachel, for bringing them all up in for the explanation. Very
Thanks for that.
very beneficial. Okay, so we will, let's group, and it will be 7.1 with 7.2, 7.3, 7.5, and 7.6. 7.4 is the first one.
I have a question about 7.6.
Yeah, do you want to discuss 7.6 a little bit?
Sure, go ahead. And then we'll move on.
What's your thought?
Okay, there's, I don't understand the second page where there's a lot of blackouts.
Okay, that is a really good question. that policy was given to us by NISBA with options, like, do you want to have this high school principal select this person, or this person, or this person? And as a policy committee, we chose the language that we felt was most effective for this district. So blacking out the other options, see where it says select one of the following in the third paragraph?
Yeah.
So there were four other options. How would that school, that member be chosen? And we felt it would be best selected by the superintendent.
So we would remove the paren, select one of the following.
Correct.
And the number 4.
Yes, it will be selected by the superintendent.
Schools.
Yes, we
Period.
wanted to demonstrate though that there was other language and provisions and so on, and we basically
I agree with
deleted
that.
it.
And what's the rest of that? This thing says option 2, and then what's that about? Right below the black arrow. Grayed out.
Select this option if there is a district-wide government or advisory committee, we are not selecting this
So
option.
that would be removed from this.
Correct.
Oh my God, just looks like it just needs to be cleaned up.
Yes, we
We're
were
waiting
giving,
on the vote here.
Well, we had a long discussion about, do we just leave it, do we clean it all up and not show you all the different parts that we
Oh,
went
no,
through?
I
And that's why we said we
I
wanted
agree
to,
with what you're
Yeah.
doing, I just thought it was a little confusing.
it wasn't what we read it to.
there was a lot of little onions in the garden. Yeah, so we'll vote on it, but are there any more questions about it? So there's an understanding that this would possibly be, well, is everyone, if you're gonna vote yes on it, would you be comfortable with this going to the
I still have another question.
ballot?
On the one about the retired employee
No.
health insurance.
Wait, can we finish talking about the,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. so is everyone comfortable with this if we vote
Well,
yes?
that's what
it
would
go?
happen. I mean, that
Okay.
was our discussion
Yeah.
before when we had a real in-depth discussion.
But now we're
and
here.
How,
I-
yes.
Yeah,
So if
Okay.
that's a given. If we approve the
Okay.
policy, then that's the next step.
excellent, okay,
So thanks for
no worries.
working on
The health insurance.
Do we provide health insurance for current employees, domestic partners?
Yes, we changed that last year.
Okay. So this is just bringing
Yes.
that.
This is just to clean it all up and make sure that since we're currently doing it for ours, we do it for our retirees.
Got it.
Content.
it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.5, 7.6, can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Great, okay. Then let's group 7.7 to 7.10, tax warrant, acceptance of very generous donation from Hanford House. Budget amendments for those gifts and donations, and the memorandum of agreement with BTA. Can I have a motion to move those?
I'll move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opportunity for the board to be heard.
There may be something in the news soon from another school district that has to do with interpretations of equity, certain equity issues. So I wanted to just commend Rachel and the board, Frank, for driving forward our equity policy and getting it into place. I think we were a little ahead of the game there, and I think, we ended up with a really good policy that is going to guide our decisions going forward. So thank you, Rachel.
Thank you to the whole policy committee for the discussion, and you too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Archie. Yeah, I think our mission and all of that strategic planning has been informing that, and it's been a group effort for sure. But thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll second what Frank said to us and wish all my fellow board members, administration, faculty, and the community a very happy and healthy holiday season. Look forward to seeing you next year. And we will almost certainly have, for new openings, fillings of positions, and the CYO, special board meeting. So don't feel stressed, as long as we have a quorum in these quick meetings, don't feel stressed. If time doesn't work out for you, okay? Okay, so dates to remember. January 3rd is our next regular, we anticipated, one a meeting before that one, but we'll keep you updated if anything else comes up before then. Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Okay, have a good evening. Thank you everyone for attending.
Hey,